from the grave is the idea, the big idea of the series is that Jesus came here to live on earth, to die, and to be raised again, but not just so that we can have a cool holiday once a year. It's really so it can do something, so he can change our lives, so we can do something with that. I think the purpose here is in Revelation chapter 1, I want to show this to you, where Jesus says, I am he who lives and was dead, and behold, I'm alive forevermore. And then he says, amen, amen. I'm going to amen myself sometime this morning. He says, I have the keys of Hades and death. So that stuff that goes on in our lives, Jesus didn't just come just to live here and show us how to live. He didn't just come just to die. It was a huge sacrifice, and it means the world to us. He also came to be resurrected and to show us that we can live lives that are resurrected. We're not just waiting for God to come, for Jesus to come back someday. We're not just sitting around. He has something for us to do. But so often I get tied up in the things in my life that are dead and dying. I get discouraged. I get down about that stuff. But Jesus is saying, hey, I have the keys to those things. Like you think that death is final. You think that that's the end. But it's not, is what Jesus is saying here. Look at, I want to show you a verse from, I want to talk actually a lot about Paul today. He's from the New Testament, and we're going to get into some details about him, but of anyone I know, like he had the worst days ever. He wanted to follow God after Jesus got a hold of him. That's a whole nother story. On his trip to Damascus, Jesus got a hold of his life, turned his life around, and you would think, hey, God, if I turn my life around, if I'm living for you, why are bad things happening? And in Paul's life, he had things like shipwrecks. We're going to talk about one of those today. He had the storms in his life that came through. He had bad things happen. And if anyone can talk about this, it's him. But I want to look here at Acts 27. And in Paul's life, he didn't focus just on what was going on, but he really has some really cool things to teach us about where to set our eyes when things are going bad. So let me just set this up for you here a little bit. When a gentle south wind began to blow, so what was going on here is they're on a ship, actually. Things were going good. Well, as good as you can if he was a prisoner. He was under house arrest. Paul was. And since he was Roman, remember Jesus was Jewish, but Paul, his dad was Roman and his mom was Jewish, so he had a foot in kind of both worlds. But because of that, one of the rights he had, he was being accused, Paul was being accused of a lot of stuff. He was in prison, under house arrest, and he said finally, hey, I appeal to Rome, which meant that as a Roman citizen, you could actually go to Rome and have your case heard. And right now, he's in a ship headed to Rome. We got this gentle south wind, and they thought they had obtained what they wanted, so they weighed anchor and sailed along the shore of Crete. So they're in the Mediterranean Sea. That's where they're at. And isn't this how it always happens? We think things are going so good. It's a clear, beautiful day right before the storm comes, right? It seems like it catches us like that. So they're headed out. The next verse. Before very long, a wind of hurricane force called the northeaster swept down from the island, and the ship was caught by the storm and could not head into the wind like they'd been trying. If you have a little boat, or if you know anything about this, you'll try to readjust it. They had a point where they knew they had to go. The wind was blowing them. They were trying to readjust. They were trying to go back, but they couldn't. And I think a lot of times, when I'm in a storm in life, I'm always, and it's blowing me this way, I'm fighting it. You fight for a while. You're like, no, I want to go this way. And finally what they did is that they gave up. We gave way to it, and we're just driven along. We took such a violent battering from the storm that the next day they began to throw the cargo overboard. Like they thought, well, maybe if we get a little bit lighter, we'll be able to, the storm won't destroy us as badly. And isn't that how it sometimes happens in our life. We sometimes take the really important things in life and start throwing those overboard. We start chucking stuff. It might be our relationship with God. It might be our morals. It's like, fine, God, if you're sending this in my life, I'm done. We start throwing things overboard that we probably need. Just saying, hey, what's the use? Then on the third day, can you imagine being in the storm for 3 days? I can't. I've always grown up in the Midwest. I can't imagine being in a storm like this on the ocean for 3 days. And they threw the ship's tackle overboard with their own hands, with neither sun nor stars appearing for many days, and the storm continued raging. We finally gave up all hope of being saved. And I'm dedicating this message this morning. I don't know where everyone here is at. I don't know what your week was like, but a lot of us have gone through some tough stuff. Maybe you've been in this storm for a lot more than 3 days, and you're just feeling like it's pretty hopeless. And every one of us, maybe you're in between storms. Every single one of us is either in a storm, has just come out of one maybe, or is just going to go into another one. And you're probably saying, hey, Pastor Nathan, can't you be a little more positive? I am positive that you're going to be in a storm soon. It's these things, it's called life. It happens. And there are some things that I want you to know about storms, and hopefully it's encouraging, and then I'll have some practical points for how to get through a storm like this. So if you're a note taker, you can write these down. If you don't take notes, just make sure to write these down too. The first one is that storms are inevitable. Like, they're going to happen. And it's not really God's job to just stop all the storms. He's not just like our cosmic Santa Claus up there giving us whatever we ask for. That's really not his job. In fact, Jesus says just the opposite. Jesus says this in John chapter 16. He says, I've told you these things so that in me you may have peace. Because in this world you will have trouble. Like, he's promising you're going to have trouble in this world. He knows, Jesus knows about what this world's like. There's going to be troubles. He says, but take heart. I have overcome the world. Jesus says, there's going to be trouble. I'm promising you that. But listen, take heart. You can have peace. No matter all the junk that's going on at work, in your marriage, at home, all this stuff that's going on, these storms that you're in, you can overcome. The storms can be going on, but you can actually be in the middle of that storm and you can have peace. That's Jesus' promise to you today. They're going to happen. Here's the second thing that we know about storms, and that's that they're unpredictable. Like, you can't plan for them. And in fact, they usually come at the worst time, right? Your car breaks down at the worst time. You get the report from the doctor hey, I don't have time for this. It's just, these things are unpredictable. We can't plan them. In fact, Jeremiah says, not just that, but disaster follows disaster. Like the car breaks down, and then the other car breaks down, and then I get sick. Stuff just piles up, doesn't it? He says the whole land lies in ruins. In an instant, my tents are destroyed, my shelter in a moment. So it's true. And it's not like you can just get over this. It's not like a little thing. Here's the third one, is that storms are impartial. Like, people say, well, why me? Why is this happening to me? And I'd say, well, why not me? I mean, like, there's nothing special about me or you to keep us out of storms in life. We're a part of this world. And you might say, well, I didn't do anything to earn this. I didn't do anything to get this storm. It wasn't my fault. And the truth is, from Matthew 5, Jesus says that God causes his sun to rise on the evil and the good, and he sends rain on the righteous and the unrighteous. Like, God sends good stuff, whether you're good or whether you're bad. I'm kind of glad that God's that way, to tell you the truth. And in the same sense, life just happens to good people and life happens to bad people. It's not like it's one or the other. I think sometimes we have kind of really bad theology about this. I love this message today because According to the questionnaire from Easter, we have 9 people that recommitted their lives to God, have made a new commitment, and a handful of other people who have either said, hey, I'm waiting, or I'm not interested. And this is for those of you who think that by somehow being close to God, you're going to be safe from life, from the storms in life. And I just want to tell you, Jesus tells you that that's not the case. It's going to happen. And in fact, they had the same problem in Jesus' day. Jesus' disciples said, hey, Jesus, there's this blind guy over here. So why is he blind? Is it because he sinned, or is it because his parents sinned? Like, there was only 2 options there. Either the guy did something wrong or the parents did something wrong. That's the only 2 options that these good Christians, these followers of Jesus, had for Jesus. Jesus said, no. That's not it at all. It doesn't matter at all. The issue isn't sin. The issue is this world that we live in. It's a broken world. And if you go back and read Genesis chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, you'll find out that broken world is our fault. God trusted us and loved us so much that he gave us a choice. Hey, how do you guys want to live? Do you want to live following me, or do you want to live doing it your own way? And we chose our own way. And welcome to earth. This is the world that we kind of set up for ourselves. And God is the only one that has the out. He's the only one that has the answer for this, and I'm so thankful for that. But sometimes life just happens, and it's not because you did something wrong. It's not because you're in sin. It's not because God doesn't love you. He does. It just we're in this world. And here's the last thing that I want you to know about storms. The best thing is that they're temporary. And this is really good news. I know sometimes when you're in the middle of a storm, you feel like it's going to go on forever, and it's just discouraging. It feels so long, feels so hard, and we want to give up. We get to that point sometimes where it's just, I can't do this anymore. I can't hold on anymore. I just feel like giving up. But I want you to know that they are temporary. And I think sometimes we want to give up because we can't see the result. We can't see what's going to happen, how it's going to turn out, and we really can't see how it's going to help us in the end. We can't see those things with our eyes. So I want to encourage you here with Hebrews chapter 10. So do not throw away your confidence. I love that. It will be richly rewarded. If you're a new believer here, you're going to go through hard times. And God says, just keep your confidence up. Keep your love, because if you do, you're going to be rewarded. This is a promise, you guys. This is a promise. You need to persevere so that when you've done the will of God, you will receive what he has promised. God's got some really big things on the other side of this world. He's got some really big things on this world too, some great blessings. But these storms are temporary, and our life is temporary too. Sometimes the way out of the storm, and we're going to talk about this just a little bit, but it's that we go to be with Christ. And that's the end of our storm. For in just a little while, he says, he who is coming will come and will not delay. So whatever storm you're facing today, business, marriage, family, whatever's going on, whatever tragedy is in your life, I just want to encourage you. I just want to say, hang in there. Don't give up. It's not going to be easy, but don't give up. Just hang in there. I want you to be encouraged today. In fact, let me show you a really powerful prayer in Scripture out of Psalm 126. And it starts like this. When the Lord brought back his exiles to Jerusalem, it was like a dream. This is the writer's kind of talking about a time back when they came back from exile. Life isn't good right now, but he's thinking back about the good old days. We were filled with laughter. We sang for joy. In fact, the other nations said, what amazing things that the Lord has done for us. Yes, the Lord has done amazing things for us. What joy. And remember, he's writing this in the middle of a storm. He's looking back, wishing it was like that. And he cries out, restore our fortunes, Lord, as streams renew the desert. This word for desert, by the way, if you're in King James or a different translation, that's the Negev. And that's all that is. It's the desert in the southern part of Israel. And I've been there. I've been able to walk around the Negev a little bit. It can be hot. It's definitely dry. There's often no trees around. But one interesting thing that happens in the Negev is that they have these, it looks like a lot of dry riverbeds. They're called wadis. And if it rains, like if it starts raining up in Jerusalem, those riverbeds will all of a sudden fill up. You'll have flash floods. It can be kind of dangerous, but what happens after these flash floods come through is that at that moment, everything turns green in this desert. Everything is renewed. Those who plant in tears will harvest with shouts of joy. And that's the promise. I know sometimes you feel like, hey, I drive my kid to school to practice. I'm doing all this stuff. I'm teaching them at home. And I get no thanks. I get no. There's nothing. And I know you're probably if you're in that stage of life, it can feel so thankless. And I just want to encourage you that God is promising these streams of renewal in whatever desert that you're in. And I'm promising this over you, that you would have joy again, that you would laugh again, that you would realize that even though there's stuff going on, those rains are coming, that crisp, clear water's coming. It's coming. Well, I want to be real practical this morning. I want to show you some I think real practical ways from Paul's life where he talks about how to deal with life when you're in the middle of that, how to change your mindset. And what Paul was trying to do is he was trying to go and plant another church, preach some more. He had all these plans that he was going to do, and they got stopped. Like he was on his way to do that, and he got his whole life. He got arrested, and his whole life changed. And in fact, the whole reason that he writes, we're going to be looking in Philippians here. The only reason that he wrote Philippians is because he was in jail. It's called a prison epistle because he was actually writing it in jail. He was writing to one of the churches that he wanted to get back to. He wanted to encourage them, but he couldn't. So instead, he writes some emails. And I think the big thing that he talks about in those first few chapters is joy over and over. Here's a guy that's sitting in prison. He's chosen by God to go preach and take the gospel to the world, but he's sitting in prison and he's able to write about joy. Let me show you some of this. The first thing that I want you to write down is to stop focusing on the past. I know sometimes you might just need some permission to move on. Maybe you lost someone in your life. Might have been a marriage, might have been a child, might have been a parent. And you feel like, well, if I move on, I'm not respecting them, I'm not honoring their memory. And I think you can still honor their memory, and you can also move on. Like God has amazing things for you, and you might just need some permission to just take a step in your life. Just go. Don't wallow in it, but start moving again. Here's what Paul says. This is Philippians chapter 1. Now, I want you to know, brothers, that what has happened to me has really served to advance the gospel. He's saying, this stuff that I went through, this tragedy, this death of my dream, we talked about that last week, it's actually been helping. Like things have actually been getting better. I never could have done what I could have done by just being free. He's not looking at the past anymore. He's saying, I'm looking to the future. There's good things happening. Number 2, write this down, is that we can discover the new opportunities. I think when tragedy strikes, we sometimes withdraw a little bit. But I think when tragedy happens in our lives, one of the best things that we can do is start looking around at other people that are going through the exact same thing. And we can encourage them. We can say, hey, I'm going through that too. I don't even know the end of my story, but I'm going through that. God's given me so much joy and hope. And listen, your opportunity is right there in that person, in those people. If you're going through a hard marriage, you can get in a small group and talk to people about, hey, I'm going through this too. I'm in the middle of this. if you've got tragedy going on in your life, just keep your eyes open for these opportunities. Look at what Paul says here in Philippians 1, verse 13. He says, as a result, it has become clear throughout the whole palace guard and to everyone else that I am in chains for Christ. Like hey, I didn't get to go plant this church or preach over here, but man, these guards, they're going to know about Jesus. And he's excited about that. He's taking lemons and making lemonade out of it. Like he's turning a horrible situation into, he's keeping his eyes open for opportunities. And it's turning out better than he could have ever imagined. And, if Paul hadn't gone to prison for these years, we wouldn't have Colossians, Ephesians, Philippians. We wouldn't have all these books that we have in the New Testament. I mean, it changed us. We wouldn't have these words of encouragement. Because Paul's plans didn't work out. He says, because of my chains, most of the brothers in the Lord have been encouraged to speak the word of God more courageously and fearlessly. In other words, he's saying this has actually worked out better than I could have ever imagined. It's because of what he was going through that other people saw it and they were encouraged. I just want to speak to you if you're going through something bad this morning. It's in your attitude. It's what you say to other people. You could really encourage other people by letting them know, being honest, transparent, what you're going through, and that it's tough, but that you see God working through it. See it as an opportunity. Paul did that, and it changed people's lives. He saw the people. In fact, you might not even thought about it, but if you look at people, either at work, probably if you even ask them, they'd probably admit to you that, yeah, I saw you go through that. I don't know how you did it. There's opportunities all around us for when we're in the middle of the storm. Here's the final key. You can write this down. And that's to focus on what really matters. Paul never let this earth become his home. He always knew that he was here for a purpose. His purpose sometimes went in different directions than he could have imagined. It certainly didn't turn out the way he thought it would. But his eyes weren't just on this world. His eyes were on eternity. He kept sight of what was unseen. He kept sight of those promises that God would someday make all these things right. That God would use him despite of his weaknesses, despite of the bad things happening in his life, despite of all the storms, God would still use him. He always kept sight of that. Here's how Paul said it. In fact, he said this right after they told him, hey, you're scheduled here to be executed. That'd be tough to hear. Here's what he said. For to me, to live is Christ, and to die is gain. Like, okay, if I live for another few years, I'll be serving Christ still. That's great. But if I die, like, that's even better. Yeah, cut my head off. Like, he just had that attitude of, hey, it's a win-win either way. And he would tell you that this morning too. That's the message. It's a win-win for you no matter what. If you're in the middle of that storm, hey, if you get out of it, that's great. You can serve the Lord. You can find these opportunities. You're going to win that way. But man, you know what? Someday, something's going to happen, and you'll go be with the Lord anyways. That's a win there too. Living as a believer is just a win-win situation. And I just want to encourage you that if you're in the middle of something going bad in your life, and it's part of our vision for you as a church. We want you to win. And you're going to win whether you weather that storm and you come out of it, or whether you go to be with the Lord.